Hi. It's the 28th of It's the 28th of December 2025. Due to the overwhelming response of the last video and all the comments that I received, and a request for another video, and I was actually going to do this last night, but I didn't have the energy. I was very tired and I just wanted to sleep. 3 days ago, I was thinking about Motley Crue again. And the Girls, Girls, Girls album cover. I was thinking about it again. And my reaction to it when I first saw it when I was 15 was, well, I was curious about it. I was interested by it. The average metalhead who is not into glam metal sees that album cover and they're like, oh, it's 4 eyes in the front and it says girls, girls, girls. I don't get along with those guys, never have, don't get along with them, can't relate to them in any way, because they're usually only metal. Their testosterone level is off the charts and it's ridiculous, and I don't get along with it. I got completely off track now. It is, yeah, so that album cover now is to be sort of examined in a sense, not in a sixth sense. You've got Mick Mars, who is kind of brooding, and it seems like that photograph shoot, that video shoot, wasn't his idea. Someone else came up to it and he went along with it. He's on his motorbike, he's brooding, he seems sort of disinterested, and you've got Nikki Sixx who's sitting on his motorbike and he completely comes across as a woman. Tommy Lee comes across as a cross-dresser, and Vince Neil is kind of neutral. I have talked about this in the previous video. I'm recovering it. I'm talking about it again. Because everyone in the comments section said, please make another video, please make another video. And I had more on this to say anyway. Vince now looks kind of like, not neutral, but really you could just, as a Motley Crue fan, you say it's 4 guys. It looks really odd because it's 4 guys and it says girls, 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 right? Anyone who's not a Motley Crue fan, anyone who's not, and also the Motley Crue in pink, that represents femininity. if you're not a Motley Crue fan, if you're seeing the cover for the very first time, sort of Madonna then for some reason, in yesteryear, my goodness, I would sometimes be amongst some metalhead people, metalhead friends, years and years and years ago, like talking about 2004 or 5 or something. And I remember with a bunch of them on a train once or something, going to a gig, and I mentioned Madonna. And I tell you what, the conversation with everyone else just stopped. They went, "What? Who's that Madonna?" I went, "Oh yeah." I said Madonna. I love listening to Madonna. I went, "Metal, only metal." And I went, "Only metal, who's that Madonna?" And I was like, I listen to Madonna all the time. They were like, their faces squinched up so hard that and my other metal head friend, he said, you probably shouldn't mention Madonna around these guys. And I was like, I listen to her all the time. He said, yeah, don't tell them that, because they got very frustrated, angry, confused, and annoyed. Now, to a person who's never heard of Motley Crue before, and they see the album cover, what would they see? They'd look at it, it reads girls, 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 and they're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. They'd say, well, this guy on the left, he looks like a cross-dresser. The guy in the background on a motorbike, that appears to be a woman. There's a guy on the right, it seems like a guy on the right, he appears to be brooding. And in the foreground there's this guy with sort of white blonde hair, and he's, in fact, actually, Girls, 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 album cover, Girls, there we go, Girls are the Girls. Where's my glasses? Do I have my glasses? Oh, not in the background. Right, I got it. Okay. So, okay, here we go. Look, we've got Tommy Lee on the left. He's in a particular pose, and you could probably say cross-dresser. Vince Neil, he looks almost like a woman in this. Nikki Sixx is the most feminine one of all there. And actually, you know, Mick Mars could actually... Mick Mars, you'd probably think he was a woman in this. So you could say, oh, cross-dressers. That they look like they're cross-dressers. And do I think the album cover now is a bit odd? I think it's... I would never wear this t-shirt again ever, and I think the last time I ever wore that t-shirt was somewhere around 2006. I don't wear Motley Crue t-shirts anymore. I don't listen to Motley Crue anymore. Are they hardwired to my DNA? Yeah, they are, because I listened to them non-stop between 2005 and 2013. I listened to Motley Crue. Am I a hardcore? Am I a die-hard fan? Not a die-hard fan. Next level down. I'm probably next level down. I'm not. I'm one level down from that. Maybe 2 levels down. But no, I'm not a die-hard Motley Crue fan at all. As I said, so hardwired into my DNA that any news or anything I hear about, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious about that. Oh, what's going on? Kind of curious what's happening. Now you with the oh, that's right. I find it odd, yet it's a bit strange, because what message were they intending at the time? In their heads, how did they feel? Like, what was their mindset? Were they cross-dressing? Because they were being glamorous. It was glam rock, glamorous. They wanted to look like women, and they were looking like women. And so it's a bit odd, yet it's an expression of who they were at the time, and they were expressing a lot of femininity. You could even say not extreme femininity, a lot of femininity. I think a in-between thing. But yes, 4 guys on the album cover, and it says "Girls, Girls, Girls." It's a take that as you will, take that as you will. For 2 days ago, I thought thoroughly. I was thinking very deeply about "Shout at the Devil," the album "Shout at the Devil," and realised that hang on, let me just get it. Let me just bring it up here. The album, Shout Devil album. Here we go. Oh, why am I not putting pictures up? Why don't I put pictures up? It takes time and copyright. I don't have to deal with any copyright when I do it this way. And putting pictures up in the video, it takes effort and time. Got to upload the picture to the thing, and then I've got to slice it in and position it, and copyright. I don't have to do with any copyright this way. This will be a separate video. I make the kind of videos that I would want to watch, and they're far and few between on YouTube. I see a lot of crap on YouTube. I see a lot of YouTubers on YouTube. I see a lot of people on YouTube who have no idea. I make the kind of videos that I want to watch. Shout at the Devil. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, that album is not nostalgic to me. It doesn't represent any kind of nostalgia to me. I discovered Girls, Girls, Girls was the first I discovered. I didn't think the album was interesting. Wild Side was interesting. Wild Side was fun. Didn't really understand it. I was too young to understand it. Too young to fall in love. But which I don't like that song. Ironically, not a lot of Crue songs that I like. I thought I liked them, but I've completely grown out of them. What was I going to say? That Girls, 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 yes, liked that. Also, the Dancing on Glass, I didn't understand what that meant until I was about 30. I was about 30. Maybe I was mid-30s when I finally understood, but I figured it out when I'm like, oh, does that mean like in a strip club and the dancing girls, like the girls in the showgirls, what do you call them? That they're dancing on the glass, anyway. Because when I was 15, I was like, dancing on glass. I don't really. Huh? After Girls, 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 the album goes downhill for me. Always did. I listened to the album again in about 2012, and I was like, okay, I understand this now. This is a really dark album. This is not an enjoyable album. I listened to it a couple times, like, I'm not enjoying this album. It's just not a fun album, not an enjoyable album. Wild Side Girls with Girls, and downhill fast. Dr. Feelgood was the one that I picked up on. Dr. Feelgood was the big album for me, which I no longer go to. I would say to them, I've been saying to myself over the years, I need to listen to Dr. Feelgood on the headphones. I need to listen to it because it's the one album that I really know. And it is nostalgic to me, Dr. Feelgood. And it's like now, barely interested anymore, but if I was somewhere and it was being played, I'd have fun and get into it. What is there? Kickstart My Heart? Was it TNT in Tinseltown? Kickstart My Heart, Dr. Feelgood, Sticky Sweet, Same Old Situation, She Goes Down, Don't Go Away Mad, should I look up the rest of the songs? You know, I remember this. It's because the album cover's all in that particular shade of green, which I actually like. That album cover is quite well done. And so I think of the album cover, and then and they're all in straitjackets. They're all in straitjackets. I never listen to Dr. Feelgood anymore. I don't even wear the t-shirt anymore. It's the only t-shirt between 2006 and 2012. I had 3 t-shirts to wear. I had Dr. Feelgood, I had Appetite, and I had Too Fast for Love. I think I had one more t-shirt to the point where I'd walk down the street in Newtown. I'd walk down the street and the people who knew me would be walking on the other side of the street, but like they'd see me and say, he's wearing the same t-shirt, he's wearing the same t-shirt. I wore Dr. Feelgood. I wore Too Fast for Love without knowing. I didn't know anything about the actual album, but I just wore it. And the Dr. Feelgood t-shirt kind of haunts me now. I think I wore it for fun in 2019 one night, go down to the mall. I just saw it. I was going through my t-shirts and I saw it and I thought, I haven't worn this in like 5 years. And I wore it down to the local mall thinking people would be like, oh, Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, and I'd thinking I'd get stopped for conversation. And no one blinked an eyelid at me. And I went home and took it off. Do I want to listen to the Dr. Feelgood album anytime soon? I've got no urge to do so. And yet, I used to think it was an album I needed to go back to for some reason. Now I've got no interest in doing so. I've moved on to other things. Shout at the Devil. Shout at the Devil. Okay, so, shout, I never understood what this meant. I've never understood it. Shout at the Devil. I never thought about it until the other day. I'm like, because I had the examination of girls, and then I'm like, shout at the Devil. What does that even mean? I've never understood what it meant. People claim it as the big Motley Crue album. To me it means very little. It's not a nostalgic album. It just doesn't mean anything to me. I never got into it. I had about 3 listens to it years ago. As I said, in 2012, I decided to properly listen to it because I was hanging out with a couple of crew heads who loved it, and they said, "Oh, you got to listen to that album, man." And I said, "I saw a partial." They said, "Ah, you got to listen." I didn't like it. I didn't like anything on it. I didn't like anything about it. But the title track, "Shout at the Devil," sort of kind of always stood out to me in a way. And the other day, about 48 hours ago, or 3 days ago, on December 26th, in the evening, I was laying down, I was laying on the bed, and I was just like, and my partner was next to me, she was asleep, and I'm like, what does this mean to me? This album, "Shout at the Devil." What does that even mean? Let me check that I'm on record. And so I'm looking at it now. I like the idea of not putting pictures up or that. It takes time, and I think that I just think that a YouTuber should be able to completely engage you with just speaking. I don't think you need to put up fancy things or that. Now, shout, and I'm like, shout at the devil, shout at the devil. I'm like, let's separate this, the devil. So what is the devil? The devil. And I'm like, okay, well, the devil typically, as a one-dimensional thing, is a fallen angel, falls from heaven into hell. I've dismissed that long time ago, but I used to believe that. I let go of that belief somewhere in 2019, when I dismissed Christianity. I threw off the last shackles of Christianity that I had left lingering on me. That's a whole other thing. As we live in a matrix simulation run by the archons, but that's a whole other thing. The devil. So the devil, yes, that ancient creature, spiritual creature who dwells in the depths of hell. It felt ridiculous to say that because hell doesn't exist. It exists in your mind. Hell, I almost felt embarrassed saying that because it doesn't exist like that. In people's minds it does because they've been indoctrinated through their religion, through Christianity, hardwired to believe in a Satan, a devil, but really Satan and the devil is within themselves. So what could the devil represent? The devil represent your consciousness, that consciousness part of you, the issues that you have in life, things that perhaps you've done to other people that you could feel guilty about, a pain that you have felt in your mind, emotionally, unresolved issues in your life, things that you feel that you don't feel good about, and how that plays on your consciousness. It plays heavily on your mind. Things that we've done in life that have caused us that you feel embarrassment about, that maybe you feel humiliated over. You've been humiliated, you've done things which are embarrassing. There's a thing in your mind, in your brain, that maybe you haven't resolved that issue, and you feel a guilt over it, and that guilt it is in your heart and in your mind. Now, this is an insert. I'm putting this video together and thinking, what could represent the devil? fear of the unknown, other people's opinions, other people's judgments, other people's perspectives, a fear of what you don't understand, a fear of what other people don't understand. When you do something different, people fear it, they don't understand it, they place a judgment. So other people's perspectives and other people's opinions that they've laid down. Fear-based. That is a representation of the devil as well. Things of fear, which is a lower vibration. Okay. Back to what I was saying. And you have, especially, well, no, I'm not going to go there because I was just going to mention religion then. And that could probably be another video. That I'm just talking about the basics here of what. So the devil, those things in your conscious mind, those things that weigh on you, weigh heavily on you, things that you're not, things you did that you're not proud of, the way you made other people feel, and you look back on it and think, oh, I feel really bad about it, I shouldn't have done that, that was not a good thing for me to do. But the shout part, doesn't make any sense. Like when you're shouting is different to yelling. You're shouting at someone, you're like, stop doing that, stop doing that. This title doesn't make a lot. What else could be? You've got that part, the devil, so it lived, because backwards it's lived. The devil can represent, sin, but there's no such thing as sin. Sin is a Christian term. Sin is a Christian thing. There's no such thing as sin. That's a Christianity term. And society is so hard. A certain amount of society is made up of Christians who live in their one-dimensional world, passed on from generation to generation, hardwired into their doctrine. Sin. Well, there is no sin. It's what else can be? Never been able to work out what they're talking about here. Never. I realise this now. Shout. That's what the devil represents. What else can the devil represent? The devil. That's what the devil represents. Actually, boulders. The government, perhaps, because the politicians who try to, this just popped into my head. This just occurred to me that I do not follow politics. The politicians, they're all corrupted. They're all corrupt, and the politicians in the government, they're always trying to dictate to people, be authoritarian. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, follow this, do this. It could be an authoritarian thing, this devil, because the devil can represent different things, so maybe, perhaps, Motley Crue are talking about authority and how the government tries to control people, and which they do. I'm very I'm very anti-authority. Oh, I'm very anti-authority. I don't like being told what to do at all. And we are in a corrupt society now. Society has actually fallen, completely fallen. The fall of society happened a while ago. It started in 2015. Society has now collapsed. Here in Sydney, society has collapsed. Sydney used to be a great place. Sydney was fantastic in the 1970s. In the 70s, I was a toddler. I came of age in the 1980s. I saw the birth of VHS, the start of VHS. But okay, so the 80s were great. My memories of the 70s are vague, but the 80s were how they were. In retrospect, they were. I had some bad things happen to me in the 80s, but the 80s were good. The 90s are great. And Sydney in the 1990s was incredible. Going into the zeros, it was still good. And then in 2014, that mobile phone, the phone as we know it now, was introduced, and everything went downhill. Downhill fast. So society the end of society started in 2015, and society has now collapsed completely, totally and utterly collapsed. And I think that maybe what Motley Crue could be talking about when they're saying shout at the devil, maybe what they're talking about is a protest against the authorities of this world. And perhaps what they might be talking about is politicians who try to rule over the nation with rules, regulations, don't do this, don't do that. Politicians and the government who make choices for the community that aren't always the best for the community, because everything that's done around Sydney is really bad, really, really bad. The people have no say. There's no voting. The people have no say, and everything I see happening around here is all the new infrastructures are horrible. All the new rules put in place are terrible. And Sydney I want to move out of Sydney. I've had enough of it. I want to spend the majority of the year in America, between Los Angeles, New York, and in Europe. I'll live in Europe for a while. That's what the devil can represent. And people are so compliant. People get compliant. They don't question things. They just accept. They just walk around. People walk around like the zombies. They don't question anything, especially around here. They're like, no one questions anything. They just comply. The government does something, and I notice that the society just complies. So he's the devil. That could just represent the zombies in society. That could the devil. Shout at the devil. It's not. Cause I think when I was getting to know Crue's music and seeing "Shout at the Devil" T-shirt, I literally just thought someone's shouting at the devil, someone's shouting at Satan, and I held that for a while when I would think about it until I disconnected from Christianity, and my brain expanded, my mind expanded, and went into new philosophical and psychological territory. And the devil, well, that could represent people who are uninformed, people who are unaware. It could represent government authority. It could represent things in society that aren't healthy, that aren't good. It could represent repression. It could represent your issues, but I don't get the shout part. Shout. What about protest at the devil? Shout at the devil. Shout at the devil. I can hear it in my head. Shout at the devil. I never understood that album title, but as I think about it today, it makes a little bit more sense. A little bit. Just the shout part. It could. Shouting at authority. That doesn't make sense. Nikki Sixx never made sense. But I think I understand it a little bit better today. Just that I'm having a broader think about it and what it might mean. Shout at the devil might be talking about Christianity. Christianity is, that is some misleading stuff. Christianity, might be talking about Christianity there, because Christianity is, disconnected from Christianity. Oh, it's been 6 years. It's been 6 years since I've disconnected from that. There's no hell. Hell doesn't exist. Hell exists in your mind. Put yourself in your own hell. There is no hell. Is there a heaven? There's different forms of heaven. Not as you might think, it's just different forms, interpretations of it in the astral levels. Watch Darius J. Wright. Go to Darius J. Wright and go to primeval mythology, and then just in general think for yourself what you feel about it all. I questioned everything. Could be talking. Could be the devil might represent. Could represent Christianity. The devil could represent all things that need to be questioned and that are just complied to and hardwired to through tradition, through society, throughout the ages, in this age, in this very age that we're in now. That's what the devil could represent possibly, is those things that should be questioned, those things that don't feel right. Maybe that's what this title is talking about. And the album cover itself. You look at them and they all look like girls. And as I look at the album cover now, where are my glasses? As I look at the album cover now, oh, they're cross-dressers. They could just be all bisexual cross-dressers. So 1983, Hollywood, 1983, well, loved to have been there in 1983. John Corabi, in his autobiography, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, he said that he arrived in Hollywood in about 1985 or 6. He arrived at the height of that. And he said he was walking along Sunset Strip, he was walking along Sunset Boulevard, and he was like, should I wear lipstick as well and put on the red nail polish like almost every other guy here? And he said he was a bit dilemmaed by it. He's like, should I just sort of join them, comply, join them? Or will I do, and he decided to do his own thing. He said, I decided not to quite go that far. He said, he said almost every guy on the Sunset Strip was wearing red lipstick and nail polish, and and I would have loved to have been there, and he said I decided not to go with that. Anyway, I think that in Hollywood, in West Hollywood at the time, because Hollywood's way over that way, and West Hollywood is, well, West Hollywood, right next to Beverly Hills. In May this year, I was in Los Angeles. I walked all around Hollywood. Love Hollywood. I walked along Franklin Avenue, past Cherokee, past McFadden, past Iowa, past Gower, past Vine, or up Vine, up Gower, walked past Capitol Records, up to Franklin, walked along Franklin to Higher Land, turned right on Higher Land, walked up past the Hollywood Bowl, walk up onto Cahuenga Pass. I love that part. And also, really love walking all around Hollywood, because all the tourists are on Hollywood Boulevard. They all congregate there. And just walk up Yucca. I walked along Yucca, because I think there's a supermarket along Yucca, which was there's a little supermarket on Yucca, great little supermarket, but which I was buying $1 vodka shots from. I'm barely drinking at the moment, because over there it's like a vodka paradise. It's $1. I digress a lot. Up higher, and there's a little girl, it's Orchard Street, which is behind Man's Chinese Theatre, and then you got Orange, and you got Sycamore, La Brea, Fuller, Poinsettia, all along to Laurel, left on Laurel down to Sunset. I walked all around Hollywood. I got the subway from Hollywood and Vine down to Pershing Square. Walked a few blocks down to, and then into Skid Row. That's an experience in itself. Walked around downtown. Got the subway back to Hollywood. I walked around Hollywood for about 2 weeks. I walked from West Hollywood to Beverly Hills. I walked along Sunset Boulevard. I walked past the Whiskey, walked past the Rainbow. Totally different culture over there. Totally different culture. Nothing like Sydney culture. I really love that. I'm fascinated by the place. Los Angeles fascinates me. It's a totally different dimension. I love being over there. I stood at the corner of Clark Street and Sunset Boulevard, and I was like, what did this look like in the 1980s? What was it like in that heyday? And then after thinking about this album cover and thinking about this girl's album cover, I was like, was it a bit of a bisexual vibe? Was it just that kind of really rock and roll, sexually charged? Was it just everything goes? Was it that kind of vibe? Because Metallica and Slayer hit town, right? They were in Hollywood for a little bit. And I think some of the thrash metal bands, I think Metallica and Slayer said, we hit Hollywood, we didn't like the vibe there, way too glamorous, way too, we didn't want to dress like girls like most of the other guys were doing, so we went up to San Francisco instead, which is ironic because San Francisco is the second largest gay community capital in the world. But you had the Bay Area thrash domain. Anyway, I sometimes think to myself, oh, just to be in West Hollywood for a day in 1987, what would it have been like? incredible. It would have been incredible, darlings. It would have been incredible. It would have been incredible. And I think that Motley Crue had a bisexuality about them. Mick Mars in the recent article, it could have been just someone put that together, AI put that together. He said according to Mick Mars, that Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx possibly went with guys. And he didn't say that, he just said a few of the guys in the band went with guys. And I was like, I immediately thought of Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee. And is that possible? Is there a possibility that Nikki Sixx went with guys? Yes. Do I overly care about this? No. Does it bring a new light on things? Yes. Am I surprised by it? No. But I think that it brings an extra dimension to it, which makes things very interesting. I don't overly care. I'm not surprised, but it brings a new light to things. And considering the album cover, it just makes sense. It makes a lot of things. Is it true? I don't know. Do I think it could possibly be true? Yes, it could possibly be true. So could Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee be bisexual? Yes, they could. Do I care a lot about this? No, but it makes it interesting. And it gives them dressing like that. Because I like that look. That Motley Crue's look was appealing to me. I like glamorous guys. I love the glamour. I like the glamorous look. I'm very attracted to it. And I think that's why Motley Crue appealed to me. And even Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee, they said, these weren't costumes for us. We walked the streets like this. I didn't think too much of it. This was back in the zeros when I read all the Motley Crue stuff. Back in the zeros, I didn't overly think too much about it. I was just like, oh, they wore this on the street, okay. It's like, this makes total sense to me now. They, this was kind of their everyday clothes. And it also that, they were being anti-authority by dressing up as women. Part of the whole message. They're trying to get people to question their everyday traditions and think outside of the box, think outside of the everyday traditions that you're hardwired to. Do I like these songs on Shout at the Devil? I said this, I don't like any of Shout at the Devil. I'm not into the album at all. But you get any person who didn't know, who wasn't aware of Motley Crue, who looks at the album cover for Shout at the Devil, will just be like, they're girls. And on closer look, I'll be like, the guys dress up as girls. Are they bisexual? So they cross-dressers. And I think that's what you could get from it. And in fact, there were so many bands on the scene at the time who were better than Motley Crue. I've watched documentaries about the Whiskey to Go Go and the Rainbow. And I tell you, I'd love to be in West Hollywood for a day in 1986. even in 1983, in the 1980s, it just be like, I've stood, I went there in 2024 as well. We went there, I think we went 3 times. We double booked ourselves. We booked through a dodgy website online to avoid the flight centre, because my partner said, we can do this ourselves. Anyway, we double booked ourselves. It just happened. And we could actually, we double booked ourselves, and we had to return again to the States this year. We went twice last year. We just ended up going there twice, which was like, I was like a kid in a candy store. And then we went back this year. We had 6 months to use the credit. Because the flight centre said, we'll give you credit, we'll just give you the credit. We had 6 months to use it. I didn't really know about this. I'm not going to go into it. Long story cut short, we had to use it by June this year. And it had to be, the crew went to New Zealand, but I had no interest in going to New Zealand. My partner, she had no interest in going to New Zealand. So we went back to the States. We went back to Los Angeles with the intention was a 2-day stopover in LA, hang out in Hollywood for 2 days. Am I going to complain about that? I was like a kid in a candy store. And then we were going to fly to New York and spend 3 weeks in New York. We got to LA thinking we'd get a cheap domestic flight. There were no cheap domestic flights. They were only expensive domestic flights. And I was like, we were like, oh, we just thought it'd be cheap to get to New York, and it wasn't. So we just stayed in LA. In fact, we actually went to Mexico. We were going to go to San Francisco, because we went to San Francisco in 2024. I appreciated San Francisco more after we got back. I had an okay time in San Francisco. Okay time in San Francisco. It was okay. It was really cold when we went there. I'd go back to San Francisco anytime. I actually love San Francisco. I'd go back there anytime. But at the time, while walking the streets of San Francisco, it was okay, but then I changed my mind about it. Anyway, we went to Mexico. We went to Condesa. We went to Mexico. We went to Mexico City. And did not enjoy it. Did not enjoy the city. I was trapped and stuck. Didn't speak the language. Didn't like the money. We spent 4 days in Mexico, and it was like, just didn't enjoy it. Found some excellent tacos. Didn't like the place we were staying at. Didn't like our host. Fortunately, she wasn't there half the time. Just didn't like Mexico. And then from Mexico, we decided we could have flown directly back to LAX. This is somewhere around May 1st. So we got back to Sydney May 20, I think it was. Somewhere around May 1st. Somewhere around May 8, or somewhere, we decided to do a stopover in Vegas, because we went from Los Angeles to Vegas and flew from Vegas to Mexico, and the price of the airfare on the way back. So the price of the airfare from Mexico City to LAX was virtually the same as the price to fly into Vegas and then back to LAX. It was virtually the same price. And we're like, well, we'll just go to Vegas first then. So we flew back to Vegas. I'll tell you what, getting back to Vegas from Mexico City, I was like, oh, civilization, back in civilization, oh. Back in civilization, I was like, oh, back to Earth. We both said, never go to Mexico ever again. Yeah, I'm telling you, the moment we got out of Vegas, I was like, breathe again. Stayed a few days in Vegas, loved Vegas, and we got a Greyhound back to Union, and then from Union we got the subway back up to Vine, Hollywood and Vine. We stayed on Sycamore, stayed at an Airbnb in Sycamore, North Sycamore, which was a good Airbnb. I actually love the hotel up on, I love the Hollywood Hotel up on Franklin. That's a good one. There's also another good hotel called the Hotel Hollywood on Yucca. The reception there are excellent. They got us out of a jam. Not out of a jam, they just helped us tremendously. Because we didn't, we got into a situation where we needed help, and they just helped us. They just helped us. They just helped us. And where are other good hotels to stay in Hollywood? Stay in something on, go to Western and Sunset Boulevard. Excellent tacos. We survived on that. And the food in the 7-Eleven there is great. I like Ralph's. Ralph's on North Fuller. They have this massive liquor section in there, and it's fantastic. I was drinking Modelo Chili. And there's a bottle shop on the corner of Lake. We know where the silver statue is. As you cross the road, and there's a bottle shop. I'm buying $2 vodka things. I stopped drinking in September. We got back. I drank. I'm barely drinking now. I've just stopped. I just had to. I won't go into that, but I was going to the bottle shops around Hollywood and buying the $1 shots of vodka and throwing them down. And I was like, it was like a naughty indulge, and I was walking the streets of Hollywood drinking. You can't really do that here. You can do it here in Sydney, but if a copper sees you, that's not going to be good. I walked around Hollywood with a beer in my hand, with Budweiser or Modelo Chili, just walked around doing that. I did it. I got spooked on Vine. I'm standing on Vine, looking down at Capitol Records, just in my own little world. I love standing at the top of Vine, where Franklin is, and there's an underpass section. I love standing there. I absolutely love standing there. And I'm standing there drinking a bud, and this cop car comes up the road, and I'm like, ugh! I freaked out. I crossed the road, I concealed the beer. It turns out the cop car was attending a certain address on Vine. He just pulled up. Didn't take an ounce of notice of me. I'm like, all of a sudden. And I walked away from it. There's a couple of people walking my way. They didn't blink an eyelid at me. I think they can tell I'm from Sydney, Australia. They can tell I'm not a local. I do my absolute, when walking the streets of Hollywood, I do my absolute best to try to blend in as a local. I think I was most successful at that last time. I don't take my camera out every 5 minutes. I took heaps of shots the first trips, heaps of photos the first trips, heaps of them. And on and when we returned this year, I took a lot less, because I'd already taken them in 2024. I took a lot less. This time, I kind of blended in as a local. I think I still stand out like a sore thumb. They can tell I'm not from there, but I would talk to so many locals. Talk to this guy on Franklin Avenue. And he said, "Where are you from?" And I stopped and started talking. I just stop and talk to the locals. Because I'm curious about them. I want to know about them. I don't do that here really. I don't really. Oh no, I don't really. I wanted to know about them. He said, "Where are you from?" And I said, he said, are you English? I said, "I'm from Sydney, Australia." He went, "Sydney, Australia?" He's like, "Oh wow." I said, "I love it here." And I said, "Oh, I love it here." And the locals that I met in Hollywood, they'd say, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Sydney, Australia." They're like, "Oh, wow." And they said, "You come all the way here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I sure have." And that was the response I got from every local that I approached. That was the same response. They'd say, "Oh, we have a good reputation there." And there's a lot of Australians in Hollywood. I can't remember if I crossed paths with any fellow Australians in Hollywood. I was just wanting to talk to the locals, and I did a lot. Tourists, I stayed away from the tourists because I attempted to talk to some tourists and like, I don't want anything. I did meet a fellow Australian. I met standing on the corner of Beechwood Drive, that leads up to the Hollywood sign, corner of Franklin and Beechwood Drive, and this guy was talking to his kids, and I'm like, I know that accent. And he's talking. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Excuse me. That's an Australian accent." He said, "Oh, I live in Melbourne." I'm like, "Oh, I live in Sydney." We spoke for 2 minutes, and then went on our way. I was very excited about that. He said, "Yeah, I live in Melbourne." He said, "I'm from Melbourne. We're here for a few days." I said, "Enjoy your afternoon." So we met a couple of Australians. Yeah, I love the buses in Hollywood. So much better than here. We've got crap buses, terrible buses. We have a terrible fucking system here. You pay once to get on the bus in Hollywood. Get the number 2 bus from. You can get what's the number of the bus that goes along Hollywood Boulevard? Well, I know it's the number 2 bus from Sunset, which can take you down to Hillgard, and then you can get Hillgard Avenue. You can get 751, which takes you up to the Getty. But the number 2 bus along Sunset Boulevard, you get on the bus. I love paying with the note. If you say 90% of the time, it wasn't after a local were talking to me because they saw I was tapping to get off, and the local said, they said, "Excuse me, did you just tap to get off?" I said, they said, "You don't have to do that." And I told them I was from Sydney, Australia, and they had got that same reaction. And they said, "Oh, darling, don't do that here. You just pay to get on, that's it." And I said, "We have a shit system in Sydney." They said, "Oh, it sounds weird." The buses in LA, buses in Hollywood, you just pay once. And to be honest, I ended up just walking on, because someone said, "Don't pay, just walk on." You can just say, "Excuse me, driver, may." You say, "Excuse me, driver, may please get on this bus," and they just wave you on. There's no ticket inspectors. There are people that look like ticket inspectors, but they're not ticket inspectors. They're not inspectors at all. They're just there to make sure to change shift for drivers. They're there to help, but they're not there to inspect tickets. There are no ticket inspectors in Hollywood, in LA. Not that I saw. And the buses there are fantastic. They're like from the 90s. They're so good. They're so good. Yeah, I walked all the way up to Bray. walked all out North Fuller. We stayed on North Fuller in 2024. We stayed there. And I walked down the Ralphs the other day. But I ended up going to 7-Eleven we ate tacos from Western and Sunset, and what was it, corner of Cherokee? Is it on the corner of Cherokee and Hollywood Boulevard, or is it on the corner of Ivar and Hollywood Boulevard? The 7-Eleven there, which has got most of our food from there. And the Irish pub is good for Guinness. I love the Egyptian Theatre. I got to know Cameron at the Egyptian Theatre. Cameron and Alex, I had long conversations with about movies. Cameron, he works at the Egyptian Theatre. Good guy. Would talk to movies for half an hour. Excellent hospitality there. Man's Finest Theatre is very interesting to be around. Intense tourist activity there, though. I do like that section. I still love that section. I love the corner of Highland Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard. I like that section, but I love the Egyptian Theatre. And then one day I walked all the way down past Vine, going west or east, up east. I walked all the way down. I walked down to Western. There's another Ralph's just past Western. Western. See, you pass 50% of tourists in Hollywood don't go past 50% of tourists don't go past McFadden or so. So by the time you get to Vine, you've got a few tourists left, but there's not many. And I've literally watched groups of tourists, groups of families who they're at Vine. They look that way past, they're going east toward Western, and they're like, "God, you want to go down that way?" And they're like, "Nah, nothing down there. Let's turn back." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you for real?" They don't even want to go up Vine toward Franklin. They're like, "Oh, should we go up that way?" And the husband will be like, "No, I don't want to go up there. It doesn't look like there's much up there." Are you freaking kidding me? Are you out of your freaking mind? Are you kidding me? Yes, I actually ran out of film before. I kept talking, the camera ran out. They look up there, they go, "No, there doesn't look like there's much up there." Are you fucking kidding me? They don't even want to walk up there. And because they've been told, don't stray off Hollywood Boulevard, don't go too far east past Vine, and I love that area. The corner of Vine Street and Hollywood Boulevard, I love it there. I stood there for 5 minutes at a time, once just to take in the atmosphere. Then I walked up to Ivar. There's a record store, a Mobia. Is that the corner of Ivar or Gower? Because I went in there, but I've walked down to Sunset, I've walked down to Santa Monica. I've even got the bus from La Brea down to Beverly because there's an art store there. We've also got the cinema there, which Quentin Tarantino owns. But you've got the big art store there, which my partner, she got all these art supplies from. And, but it's all tourist activity pretty much stops once you walk up Highland toward Franklin Avenue. And I actually really like it. And there's a great little street, Orchard Street, which is behind the Kodak complex. Such a quiet street. Yes. And I've stood on the corner of Clark. I saw the Motley Crue house on Clark Street. I stood at Clark and Sunset Boulevard, and I was like, "Oh, what was this like in the 80s?" Motley Crue, yes, Motley Crue the albums, and what were Motley Crue really like, and do they convey everything accurately and truthfully in the dirt? Possibility of not entirely. There's no guy stories or being with men, because they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to say that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it is true. Highly unlikely that they're going to talk about it in that capacity. Highly unlikely. And I think that everything that you read in the dirt, I read the dirt. I can't remember when I read it in the Zeros. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember bits and pieces. And the movie The Dirt was an entertaining piece of film. Was it accurate? Not remotely. It was a fun piece of film, but it was absolutely not accurate. And if you were to go back in time until you actually experience it for yourself, it would be very different from The Dirt. In fact, you probably find them to be a bunch of arseholes. Motley Crue, you probably find them to be a bunch of arseholes who would probably be unbearable to be around. Tommy probably would be the most fun to be around. Okay, so I think, this is actually like on the 29th, this is a day after most of this was recorded. I needed to come back to this part. I think that Mick Mars would have been the only decent one to talk to, although Tommy Lee does come across as fun. You'd probably be able to have a conversation with Vince, depending back in those days, they just probably would have been, it would have come across as obnoxious, and Mick would have been about the only good one to talk to. In fact, actually, in the old Yahoo chat days, I talked to this guy who lived in America. He lived near Los Angeles. Near around Los Angeles, I used to speak to him semi-regularly. And one day I brought up Motley Crue. I just brought them up, and I was going on and on about them. He said, I've met them. I said, I've met Motley Crue. I don't know if he said he met them twice or once. He said, I've met Motley Crue. He said, they're a bunch of throbbing arseholes, except Mick. He said, I talked to Mick. Mick was the only decent one I talked to. He said, I talked to Mick for about an hour at a bar once. He was cool. The rest I wouldn't give the time of day to. So I think that Mick would have been cool to talk to. Nikki always says weird things. Like he said in an interview, but it's not shout with the devil, it's shout at the devil. Neither makes sense. Made a bit more sense of it. I've made a bit more sense of it in this video for myself for this. What would it have been like? It would have been like there are many other bands and other bands who were much better than Motley Crue. Motley Crue were aggressive in their approach of advertising themselves. They had to be. They had aggressive advertising. And when I saw Motley Crue in 1990 at the Sydney Entertainment Centre, they were something to be looked at. They were interesting. They were quite interesting. And you've when they're talking about the Saints of Los Angeles, it's like I don't remember very much from that album. I never intend to listen to it again. It doesn't interest me. What are they talking about, the Saints of Los Angeles? I can't help but think that they are referring to themselves. I think it goes something like, we are the Saints of Los Angeles. The Saints of so are they referring to themselves as the Saints of Los Angeles? When I think about it, it makes absolutely no sense. A lot of the things that Nikki Sixx writes don't necessarily make a lot of sense. But right. Oh, new tattoo. New tattoo. I listened to it at the time. New tattoo is, now I don't, it's not with Tommy Lee. I think it's with Randy Castella. And I remember listening to it at the time. Don't remember anything of it. Don't want to go back to it ever again. New tattoo, not an interesting title. Not interesting at all. I think that the album cover lacked depth. The album lacked depth. And Generation Swine, you've got them with the pig faces. And a bit of symbolism there, I think, with they're now pigs. Take from the album cover what you will. I thought it was a really, I felt that that album cover lacked depth. I didn't think the pigs were that interesting. So it's, you can see all the things on TV that you want and all the video footage that you want until you go there in person, or until you see them in person, until you actually see them in person. It's that's what I was going to say. Actually, into it. I saw them. Oh, actually, there's two things to say. I recognised. I figured out where the Motley Crue house was on Clark Street, and I tried to imagine them all partying. But I tried to envision what that street looked like in 1987. Probably very much almost the same. Looked almost the same as it did the house, and then more partying. But after Dr. Feelgood, whenever Motley Crue came to Sydney, Vince always looked tired. And there was one year that I didn't enjoy. It was the Carnival of Sin 2006. And Tommy Lee came across as obnoxious that night, just a bit arrogant. That was when they had a titty cam. And he just came across as obnoxious. That wasn't a great time that night. The titty cam took up the space of about 3 songs. Wasn't enjoyable, and it just, in retrospect, it wasn't a great night. Yeah, I don't. But have Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee been the guys? Maybe. They probably have. I don't really care. It doesn't surprise me. It adds another dimension to them. Perhaps they have. Very well might have. I should make this for a separate video, but the Heroin Diaries. The Heroin Diaries. Did Nikki Sixx embellish that and make most of it up afterwards? It's the same thing over and over again. I was around someone who was on heroin back in 2011. I spent 2 months and was hanging out with the wrong woman. I never took it. I watched her do it. And I'm telling you, she wrote down nothing. She wrote nothing in the entire time I was with her, which was I spent 2 months with her, which is 2 months too long. She wrote nothing down. She didn't keep notes about anything. She was so out of it after she'd do it, so out of it that she was incapable of writing anything down. I think everyone's probably different. But do you really think that while Nikki Sixx was doing that he was like, oh, pen and paper? I just think it's highly unlikely. I think that what happened was, years down the track, he has remembered bits and pieces of it. He remembered doing things. This is an insert. I just briefly looked up the Heroin Diaries on Google, and released in 2007 by Ian Gittins, and released in 2007, which means I read it somewhere around 2009, I think. 2009 or 2010, I read it. Okay. Yeah. Wrote bits and pieces, and very well could have just made most of that up. Remembered what he did, remembered the period in which he did it, remembered, because the book is very, very repetitive. It's just, it shoots up, is out of it, falls asleep, is out of it. It does numerous things, the same pattern of things. It could very well be that he just filled in blanks years later. Filled in the blanks. I think it's highly unlikely that someone who's on heroin is going to keep a diary. Maybe he's different. Maybe he's different. It's really unlikely for someone who's on that to keep a diary. And but just some of it is, I think it's a very good chance that some of it's, a lot of it is embellished. I read it, thought it was a good read, thought it was a bit repetitive in parts, like he keeps doing the same thing, and someone I knew at the time who was a big Crue fan, and he said, I mentioned it to him, and he's like, oh, that book, he said, I barely got through it. I'm like, you love Crue, you love Nikki. He said, yeah, I want to keep reading. He said, he shoots up, he collapses, he passes out, he falls asleep, he keeps doing the same thing. He says, I get it. He says, repeats it 50 times in the book, and he says, that's it. And I found the book intriguing. I found it to be a good read, fascinating. But I think it's a matter of fill in the blanks. I did this during this period. I'm remembering back to it, and I'm just going to throw in things, fill in the blanks, to make it entertaining. You just don't know. I mean, what are the facts? What is the truth? What is the person telling you? What are the facts? Does it make sense? How does it connect? Does it make sense? Do things connect together? Does it? What is it? And what really went on? Bunch of aggressive musicians who, through their aggressive advertising, made it, and who put together a few good tunes, mainly via Mick Mars, who was a very, very good guitarist. Tommy Lee, excellent at drums. Hollywood was a very interesting and eye-opening place in the 1980s, and I think if you went back in time, you'd see a very different Motley Crue, very different Motley Crue. I don't think wouldn't have necessarily been the talk of the town. They would have been fascinating and interesting to look at. A bit of talent there, like they stand out in the crowd. With it, I think there would be many other people around them and many other bands around them which were far more talented and people around them who were far more interesting. They were just one mob amongst many in town. I think they would have been, I just think it might have been obnoxious, they would have been obnoxious to be around. To a degree, to a large degree. Yeah. And one band's story, one band's chapters. Yeah. Aggressive promoting, aggressive advertising, and because I've outgrown that music now. I've very little to no interest in visiting Crue's early catalogue. It's not nostalgic to me because I said it started with Girls, Girls, Girls and even dismissed that. Dr. Feelgood it was for me. I've heard the Karabi album a number of times. New Tattoo didn't grab me at all really. Saints of Los Angeles, I don't know, I was listening to that for about 2 months on end when it came out. Haven't listened to it since, ever. I'm probably missing a Crue album, but The Generation's fine. Yeah, I was relieved when I disconnected from Motley Crue. Just a relief. There was other music, just went on to other music. I was always eclectic and just listening to other stuff. And once Nikki Sixx got that huge, Nikki Sixx has that huge tattoo on his back, and ever since he's always worn a shirt. He's never taken his t-shirt off or shirt off in public since. Yeah. Oh, it was a huge thing. This is what I thought from my perspective. Girls, 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 Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee had a couple of tattoos. For Dr. Feelgood, they got fully inked. Nikki Sixx got a full sleeve and Tommy Lee got a full sleeve. And I do believe that they wouldn't have been as popular or gained as much attention as they did if, because it was a full-on thing to do at the time, if Nikki Sixx hadn't have got fully covered. Like if he hadn't have got covered anything, he got a full sleeve done, then he had another full sleeve done. Tommy Lee did the same, and his legs, and I think that really gave them the edge. I just think that if Nikki Sixx hadn't have got that done, they wouldn't have attracted as much attention because it was a full-on thing to do, full-on thing. And I think at that time I was a bit overwhelmed by it, but totally fascinated by it. Totally fascinated. Oh, he got covered in tats. Because I thought that was edgy, like a real edgy, rebellious thing to do. It was like, whoa. And I think that is why Dr. Feelgood was very successful because of Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee's appearance with their tattoos. And I think the music was almost secondary. I think their image came first, and if Nikki Sixx hadn't done that, I just think they might have fallen flat. Because Nikki Sixx went to the extreme. All the leather, the tight leather, and the tattoos. Because it was almost like overnight that he did it, that Nikki Sixx did that and Tommy Lee did that. Mick Mars didn't do it. Vince later got a full sleeve, but Vince got a full sleeve over time. Yeah, I really think that's what that's what it was about, completely about. Okay. Okay. I wonder if one day Nikki Sixx will wake up one morning and just think, I want to get some of my tattoos lasered off, or I want them removed. Maybe he's already changed some of them. So that's a bit on Motley Crue. That's a bit on them. And as I did say, Vince always looks tired in concert, and sort of semi-tired in interviews. And he did have a health issue recently, which I think he's recovering from. Yeah, Motley Crue. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.